Hello, and welcome back to Random Vids. So, today we're doing more SpongeBob. So, what SpongeBobified thing are we doing today, you may ask? Well, how about the top 10 best episodes from seasons 7, 8, and 9? So I said this before in the top 10 worst, but I feel like seasons 7, 8, and 9 is like vice versa of 4, 5, and 6. It gets better as it goes on instead of getting worser. I feel like they really tried with 9, with 8, and 9 was actually really good. 7 still had a lot of rough patches though, but that doesn't mean there isn't any good episodes in season 7 or 8 or 9. So, we're going to see what the best episodes are. Also, if you don't know, I already ranked every single episode of SpongeBob on my second channel. I always say I'm going to link it down in the description, but I never do. So, instead, it's in my community post where you can find it. Um, you can find my channel there. Anyway, now let's get on with the countdown. Number 10 would go to Pull Up a Barrel. Oh man, you gotta love this episode. We're starting off with a good season 9 episode. Basically, Mr. Krabs tells SpongeBob and Squidward a story about when he used to be a chef in the Navy. And of course, guess who the captain is of the ship? None other than Patrick, which is hilariously funny to see. Patrick only wants the food to be disgusting, but of course, Mr. Krabs says, no, we have to make them good, and even says, you know what? I'm not going to listen to Patrick, I'm going to make them good food anyway. So Mr. Krabs goes to jail, and of course the guards are Squidward and SpongeBob, which is funny to see. And then we have Pirates, which of course is by Sandy and a bunch of other random fish in Bikini Bottom. They try to fight Mr. Krabs and everything, and the episode just goes chaos from here. This episode honestly kind of reminds me of Grandpappy the Pirate from Season 6, and even Friend vs. Foe in Season 5. If both of those were together, then we would have this one. I don't know why it reminds me of those episodes, but it does. There's nothing else I really have to say about this episode. It's a good Season 9 episode. Mr. Krabs is actually likable, and as I said, all the main characters playing parts in Mr. Krabs' backstory just makes it all the funnier. It's a good episode, and it's definitely worth checking out. Let's move on to number 9, which is Enchanted Tiki Dreams. I know, right? How dare me put a Season 7 episode on the best list? Well, like I said, even if I don't like the season, that doesn't mean there's good episodes. And this one is pretty good for a Season 7 episode. Basically, SpongeBob and Patrick actually feel bad for torturing Squidward for once. When is that ever a thing, especially in these mid-seasons? And then overnight they create this enchanted tiki world for Squidward. Then he sings a really catchy song from Season 7, the Enchanted Tiki Dreams song. And yes, SpongeBob and Patrick are there, but they're not doing their usual annoying stuff like they usually are. In fact, they're actually making life better for Squidward. And it's just so nice to see Squidward get what he wants for once. After getting all those bad Squidward episodes in Season 6 and 7, it's nice to finally see a good one. Is this the best episode ever? No, definitely not. There is still some Squidward torture in here, and I think the whole ending with the Tiki Dream burning down was a pretty poor choice. It would have been really cool to see this land in more episodes, or just at least for a full episode. But if you're upset that Squidward's been tortured too much, don't worry, the ending is good because Squidward gets to ride a ride and torture SpongeBob and Patrick. This is a good episode. For people who hate Squidward torture episode, if you hate a Squidward torture episode, this is the episode to watch. Because it's more vice versa, actually. Well, sort of. Anyway, it's a good episode, and it's on my list. Let's move on to number 8, which is Squidward and Clarinet Land. Wow, not only another Season 7 episode, but another Squidward episode cracked this list. Basically, Squidward is going to a clarinet recital tonight, and one small droplet of saliva makes Squidward the grumpiest creature in Bikini Bottom. So Mr. Krabs gives Squidward a locker to put his stuff in, but allows SpongeBob to as well. So SpongeBob makes the locker all pretty and nice, and then even makes like a whole back room to this thing. So when a bunch of noise is bothering Squidward, he enters the locker into this, well, giant not clarinet, but locker room. And then he makes his way to Clarinet Land, with a bunch of clarinets. Then a whole bunch of chaos happens, and then Squidward just ends up back at the Krusty Krab then. And instead of what Season 7 would have done, be like, and SpongeBob showing up, be like, "Oh, Squidward, you don't have a clarinet." Or, "Oh, Squidward, I broke it." SpongeBob actually has it for Squidward, because I guess he was renovating the locker, whatever it is. So Squidward traps SpongeBob in that locker, and he takes him to far, far away town, which is deserving. Like I said, I think Squidward's just tired of being tortured at this point, so he's snapping a little more quickly in this season than he did in Season 6. And the episode ends with Squidward going to the clarinet recital, SpongeBob being there just to give him his clarinet. It's a really funny, goofy mess of an episode. My favorite parts, though, have to be when Squidward is in Clarinet Land. There's just so much chaos that happens, and I love the mysterious type of episodes in SpongeBob. They make it so good. And even having such a good episode in such a pretty low-rated season, this episode still did really fine, and I really enjoyed it. Aside from a little few Squidward tortures here and there, I think this is a really good episode. And with that, let's move on to number 7, which is Sweet and Sour Squid. Wow, 3 times in a row, another good Squidward center of attention episode. Anyway, so in this episode, Plankton, yet again, trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula, this time goes to Squidward. And it's really cool to see because we never really see Plankton and Squidward together. It's usually either him with SpongeBob or him with Mr. Krabs. Anyway, so Plankton puts earplugs in and says that his music is really good right after playing as what SpongeBob likes to call Door Slam, which was hilariously funny to see. Then Squidward plays a really, catchy song in Season 8. I think Season 8 is what I can call the musical season. There's so many good music in this season. There's a lot of music, and it's all really good. Like I said, a lot of this music just doesn't get praised, like stuff like Band Geeks or the Striped Sweater Do or the Camping Episode song. Those songs are good and all, but these are just way better, I think. Not trashing on those episodes, because they're pretty good, but I mean, even this episode, I don't think it's perfect, but I mean, the song is actually really catchy. You just don't hear it everywhere like you do Band Geeks, for an example. Anyway, then Plankton's earplugs fall down, and before Plankton can get them, Squidward plays more music. Plankton gets annoyed because of how bad it is and takes his clarinet and runs away. And because Plankton was the one carrying the clarinet, he ends up going to jail for playing the music. What? We actually see no torture of Squidward in this episode. And you really think this would be one of them, because Squidward plays his music loud and gets everyone upset, so you think he's going to be the one getting in trouble. Especially since this is coming from Season 8. Well, I guess Season 8 did improve a lot, but wow, I didn't think it was going to improve this much. If this was Season 7 and definitely Season 6, the police would have came out of nowhere when Squidward was least expecting it, probably tackle him, break his bones, and probably throw him in the car and take him to jail. That's what we would have gotten out of Season 7 and definitely 6. But no, Season 8 improved, and the actual villain of the show goes to jail. They've definitely improved a lot. This episode definitely shows it. It's nice seeing Squidward be happy, even if Plankton's faking it. It's just such a good episode. This season also has Le Chum Bucket, I think it is. And it's another one where Squidward and Plankton work together. That one's good and all, but I think the whole ending just ruins it, with Squidward's grandma coming in and destroying everything that Squidward worked for. Unlike this episode, where I think it ends a little better. So, Sweet and Sour Squid, definitely a really good one of Season 8. Let's move on to number 6, which is Hello, Bikini Bottom. Speaking of Season 8 being the musical season, we had a whole episode based off of music, Hello, Bikini Bottom. This episode gets very interchangeable, because I really, really love the music in this episode. It has some of the best that the SpongeBob series has ever seen, in my opinion. And some parts of the story are really cool, too. Like SpongeBob and Squidward going on a tour, it's really cool, and you gotta love the dynamic between SpongeBob and Squidward's playing. And you gotta love how they play at supermarkets, retirement homes, and birthday parties for kids. And you can't forget about the bus in the middle of nowhere. That part was just so awesome to see. Like, it almost reminds me of in season 2, Welcome to the Chum Bucket, where SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs are singing. Just not as emotional. Anyway, the parts that kind of lower this that wouldn't put me at number 1 is mainly the story itself. So SpongeBob and Patrick get invited to this tour, and Mr. Krabs just kind of comes in and steals it all because why not? Which leads to another one of those dumb Mr. Krabs being cheap episodes, which we've seen a lot. Heck, including things like even taking his girlfriend's bus. But that doesn't distract me too much from this being a really good episode. Heck, it's not even episode, it's a frickin' special because it's so awesome. And no Patchy! Yes! This is what I wanted out of a SpongeBob special for years now. Now, yes, not every special has Patchy in it, but this one doesn't, and it's one of my favorites? Oh, yes. Also, if you loved Ned and the Needlefish from that episode in Season 4 Wigstruck, well, they're in this episode again, and they're definitely less annoying since they're not just picking on each other the whole time. But it's cool seeing them return in this special, and overall, this is a really good episode, and this one always gets really interchangeable with a lot of these episodes above this episode, because this one's good, but there's others I really like as well. So for now, I think it's going to be at number 6, but that doesn't mean it won't ever change. Anyway, hello Bikini Bottom. Definitely one of the best episodes. Now let's move on to number 5, which is Perfect Chemistry. Wow, another good Season 7 episode. This was actually the last Season 7 episode. Anyway, it's a simple story. Sandy and Plankton team up to try to make both of their inventions work. And it's funny how we've never seen an episode like this until now, where both scientists of Bikini Bottom work together. And of course, SpongeBob's there with some goofs and laughs as well. And then the episode just turns plain funny when they try to teleport SpongeBob to the Krusty Krab, and Squidward's cooking the patties, and all you see is just SpongeBob staring at Squidward. It's not even SpongeBob, it's just SpongeBob's eyes. And then just SpongeBob's mouth teleports, which is really funny to see. And then his arms and legs, and by the third time Squidward screams, Mr. Krabs just doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. Plankton traps them then because he gets help from Sandy to steal the formula, but Sandy's always 2 steps ahead, gets the formula from Plankton, and the episode ends. And it ends with Sandy doing the evil laugh, and it was honestly super funny to see. Now I just want every character in SpongeBob to imitate Plankton now. Oh yeah, right, we got Mimic Madness in Season 10. Well, he didn't do Plankton's laugh, but you know what I mean. Very good episode. This one just has to be the best in Season 7. It's just such a goofy, hilarious mess. And, every scene at the Krusty Krab is silly as well. Now let's move on to number 4, and that would be Plankton's Pet. I mean, come on, it's obvious this one was going to be one of the best episodes. So Plankton adopts this cute little amoeba puppy who is cute. Plankton teaches the little amoeba pet basic puppy training, and and then even ends up teaching him how to steal the formula. Well, no, never mind. That was Season 11. I mean, okay. He teaches Spot how to beat up a criminal, I guess, but Spot's just too cuddly and huggy to do that. So Plankton ends up tying Spot up outside because he's been, quote-unquote, misbehaved, and Spot's just there whining and crying. I love Spot. He's adorable. He's definitely a lot better than the other pet we have, Gary. So when Spot goes missing, Plankton gets help from SpongeBob to find Spot. They even end up going back to the animal shelter, and wouldn't you know, he was actually hiding on Plankton's eye. Spot, this tiny puppy, but scares away all the animals in the pet shelter that accidentally get let out by SpongeBob. And the episode ends. The plot is simple and sweet. It's just a cute little puppy on SpongeBob. You gotta love these type of episodes. Overall, just a good Season 9 episode. With that, let's move on to number 3, which is What's Eating Patrick? Man, what an awesome Season 9 episode. Basically, Patrick trains against this world champion who can eat Krabby Patties really fast, and Patrick takes little nibbles and eats as slow as possible. And then eventually Patrick trains because of this widow boy that will never give up on Patrick. It's honestly super sweet. I love the direction they went with this episode. And you gotta love how at the beginning, both contestants just don't care and they're just like, hey, how are you doing? The contest starts and Patrick isn't really too sure about this until he sees the widow boy with the broken foot. Then he starts munching down on the Krabby Patties. And eventually, when they're both full at the end, Patrick ends up winning by one Krabby Patty. This episode is just so good. I love how all the characters are in character, and it's just such a funny and good episode in my opinion. The widow boy with the broken foot is cute, Patrick's taste buds are cute, and it's just a really funny episode overall. And I can consider this one probably the best one of Season 9. Now, let's move on to number dos, which is Planet of the Jellyfish. Man, what an awesome Season 8 episode. Basically, this clone jellyfish makes a bunch of clones of little jellyfish, and everyone gets one, because the first target is Patrick, and now he's a jelly clone. So then everyone ends up getting one at the end. So everyone, including except for SpongeBob and Sandy, end up getting clonified, I guess, if that's the words. Also, for some reason, it's super funny to see all the characters in the Krusty Krab saying, "One Krabby Patty, hold the mayonnaise." And I like how Patrick's just randomly cooking as well instead of SpongeBob. It's like a better Bummer Vacation from Season 4. Bummer Vacation was alright, but it wasn't my favorite. This episode is miles better than Bummer Vacation. And you are considered a freak if you like mayonnaise. Eventually, SpongeBob gets help from Sandy, who hasn't been clonified as well, and they both try to stop the giant jellyfish. So SpongeBob puts mayonnaise on all the clone people, and then they come back to normal, because the big jellyfish takes them all to the Krusty Krab and hangs them on the ceiling for some reason. And the episode ends with the jellyfish that big clone jellyfish guy getting, I don't know what the word is, disintegrated by the mayonnaise, and now Mr. Krabs has new food to sell because Patrick ate it and it tastes good. Man, I love this episode. It's not really, well, it's funny, but I mean, it's almost like a dark, mysterious type of episode, and it's done really well. Overall, this one is a really good episode. It's almost number one, but not quite. Speaking of which, let's talk about the honorable mentions. Buried in Time. Yeah, sure, this ain't the best episode ever, but there's just something about it that I really like. Yeah, the whole part was Squidward judging everyone's stuff, and Mr. Krabs being stupid enough to not know that Squidward, Patrick, and SpongeBob are inside of and even Plankton too, because he spies on them and can clearly see them in there. Anyway, so SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward end up getting buried, and in 50 years, they will come out. So while they're in there, they're trying to think of how Bikini Bottom will look in 50 years. And then one of my favorite parts in the whole season, where Patrick picks up a can of shaving cream and thinks it's whipped cream and puts it in his mouth. Instead, he gives himself a beard, SpongeBob, and Squidward even as well. Overall, it's a simple, alright Season 7 episode. Tunnel of Glove. Remember back in Season 5 where I said basically most of the episodes that have Glove rolled in it is automatically a plus, and this episode is no exception. So Pearl's friends think that her and SpongeBob are dating and they're girlfriend and boyfriend. So of course Pearl gets unlucky and ends up getting stuck with SpongeBob on the Tunnel of Glove. Unfortunately then the ride gets shut down because Pearl rocks the boat and heart falls into the ride. Not a real heart, of course, but you know what I mean. And then we get to see some stupid but funny Patrick moments. And yeah, usually these type of things would be super annoying in Season 7 and 6, but they were actually done right in this episode. I love how Patrick finds this part robot thing and thinks it's SpongeBob and takes it away, and then, oops, the lights are out now. Then he pushes a bunch of buttons, and then the guy's like, no! It's just so funny. You gotta also love the news reporter, too, when Patrick doesn't seem to care about SpongeBob, and he's like, hey, you know your best friend is trapped, and they're right, and Patrick's like, oh, oops. Then the Tunnel of Glove turns into a Tunnel of Terror, with the animatronics coming to life and chasing Pearl and SpongeBob. This is a chaotic but awesome Season 7 episode. In Spongiac. You either love this episode or you hate this episode. I'm definitely on the side that actually likes this episode. Basically, SpongeBob's told he doesn't get enough sleep from, of course, Mr. Krabs, so SpongeBob then tries to get some sleep, and of course it goes terribly wrong. So then SpongeBob asks advice from Patrick, of all people, who doesn't really help, but we get to see a bunch of funny moments with, like, the story and then the whole song that will make SpongeBob go to sleep. The lullaby, which isn't really a lullaby, it's the get up, be active song. For some reason, it's so funny. And then Patrick gives him a drink, which is really coffee, and makes him go all haywire, and then SpongeBob starts imagining stuff everywhere. And then it basically turns into Squidward and Clarinet Land, but now it's SpongeBob and Mustard Land. SpongeBob gets a few winks of sleep, goes into work being even more tired than the previous day. Mr. Crab notices, and then yells at SpongeBob, who cries mustard tears. I think this episode's really good. I always loved it when I was a kid, and I still love it now. Besides Mr. Krabs being a jerk, everything else about this episode is really good. Sentimental Sponge. Wow, I actually really like this episode. Basically, it's if SpongeBob became a hoarder and kept every single little thing that he had. The reason why? Well, because Patrick told him to, and of course, because it's the Season 8, he agrees. But it becomes so bad that it infects Squidward's house, and his house ends up getting condemned as well. Finally, though, the episode ends with them taking all the trash away, but there's a little surprise. SpongeBob ends up taking pictures of all of his junk and keeps them. And this is Squidward's idea, not SpongeBob. Even though Squidward is annoyed at SpongeBob in this episode, it's nice to see him help SpongeBob out this time. And the policemen are pretty funny in this episode, too. I like how they call Squidward's gown a dress. Not even a gown, it's just his pajamas. Overall, it's a good Season 8 episode. A friendly game. Basically, if it was SpongeBob versus Patrick in golf. It's a simple, fun Squidward, Patrick, and SpongeBob episode. So they build a obstacle course inside because it's raining, and, well, I guess I should say the obstacle course actually looks really good. Well, the golf course. Unfortunately, the play it where it land rule gets a little out of hand when the balls accidentally end up in Squidward's house. So then for once, it's actually kind of funny seeing SpongeBob and Patrick destroy Squidward's house, just because of how funny it is. And then both balls end up on Squidward, and they shoot them back to SpongeBob's house at the end. This one is just such a funny episode. Yeah, Patrick's a little annoying here, but at least it's more for a purpose. They're playing a game, and it's supposed to be more chaotic. Overall, another good Season 8 episode. Tudor sauce. Basically, it's SpongeBob trying to drive, but this time Mr. Krabs is the teacher. So far, it's probably the best boating school episode. A lot of the earlier boating school episodes were honestly pretty bad. And then we get stuff like Driven to Tears. Ugh. But this one's actually pretty funny seeing Mr. Krabs teaching SpongeBob, and it's actually really refreshing to see Mr. Krabs willing to teach him, because normally what we would see is Mr. Krabs grump and be like, I don't care, SpongeBob. Well, I mean, I guess this is Season 9, and the characters aren't really one-dimensional anymore, which is nice, so I like this episode. And you gotta love every time SpongeBob crashes into the Krusty Krab as well. Salsa imbecilies, blah blah blah. It's a simple story. Basically, everyone turns stupid because of Plankton. Including Plankton himself. So basically, everyone's dumb except for Sandy and Karen. So both of them have to retrain everybody how to do certain things. Overall, this episode's really funny. It's just funny seeing everyone act like Patrick. And seeing Sandy and Karen work together is just such a treat. Overall, it's a funny, good Season 9 episode. The Whole Tooth. The finale in Season 9 ended with a banger. So Patrick has a baby tooth and he doesn't want to get it out because he thinks it's going to hurt. But then eventually with the tooth hurting because it's a baby tooth and it's ready to get pulled out, Patrick finally accepts and is like, okay, fine, we'll go to the dentist and get it pulled. And I love it when Patrick's baby tooth comes out that it actually ends up going to a literal tooth fairy, like a cruise ship for teeth. And I love at the end that all of Squidward's teeth end up trying to swim to the Tooth Fairy as well. And I mean, Patrick's tooth is adorable too, so that's worth mentioning. Overall, just another good, funny Season 9 episode. Now let's move on to number 1, Frozen Face Off. What a good episode to end this top 10. Frozen Face Off from good old Season 8. Basically, if the SpongeBob cast was in a snail or snow... What am I even talking about anymore? Basically, the beginning of this episode is literally just the ending to Snow Buddies, if you've ever seen that movie, where they all have sleds, and time by time, each of them get out. Also, I like how Patrick's just gets pulled by worms, because, why not? And it's nice seeing the whole cast together again. Heck, even Karen joins them at one point, because Plankton made a robot. Karen was the worm, I guess, because the real Plankton is in Bikini Bottom trying to steal the formula. And of course, all attempts are stupidly funny. And then we get this big monster who tries to squish everybody. Not squish, eat everybody. At least that's what they think. Also, I love how Squidward is just ice the whole time. Normally I'd find that annoying because I would almost consider that Squidward torture, but it isn't. It's just Squidward trapped in a block of ice. And heck, everyone ends up getting trapped in a block of ice at one point too, so... Okay, well, except for Sandy. Squidward's safe in that ice cube. He can't get tortured in there. The episode ends with the SpongeBob crew including Karen, trying to get the formula back from Plankton. And then the big monster shows up just because he's hungry and steals Patrick's jelly beans. And then he chases Plankton at the end, thinking that he's a jelly bean. Yet again, just another good special from Season 8, and another one without Patchy. And in my opinion, this episode is probably my favorite episode from Seasons 7, 8, and 9. Wow, so I hope you all enjoyed this video. Nothing much else I really have to say. We are almost done with all these SpongeBobs. We just have Season 10, 11, and 12 to talk about. And we'll talk about those next time. And I will see you next time. Have a good day, and I will see you. Bye.